Exactly the same.
Greetings, everybody. My name's Dave DeWalt. I'm the founder and CEO of Night Dragon. Today, we have a very special event, a very educational and informational event. It's called The Rise of Bots. And I think everybody understands that bots are a big challenge. But today, we really want to dig into the threats and the trends of bots. I'm sure you're all watching some of the news that's happening. The problem of bots has been around a long, long time, and we're going to dig into it today with a very special guest. Today, joining me is Tamer Hassan, the co-founder and CEO of Human, one of the coolest company names, I believe, in the world of security, Human. And Tamer comes with an amazing background. I just want to read his bio if I can. Not only as co-founder and CEO of Human, he led one of the biggest bot fraud organization takedowns ever, called Eve, with the help of Google and the FBI. We're going to talk about that, Tamer, in just a minute. But after this huge win for the internet, Hassan was named #1 most creative person in business by Fast Company magazine, as well as one of Ad Age's 40 under 40. Although, Tamer, I'm not sure you're under 40. You're over 40 now, I think, right?
Just barely.
And before his career in fighting botnets, he was the founder and CEO of Compelled Data Technologies, a software development consulting firm. He also had a career in the US Air Force, where he completed multiple combat deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan as a decorated combat search and rescue helicopter pilot and tactical officer. Wow, Tamer, thank you for coming on here. I had to read that just because such an honor to have you, and thank you for your service and incredible career from Air Force up through fighting botnets as well. Welcome.
Thank you, Dave. It's always a pleasure to get together. I'm always excited when we chat. I've learned so much from you and just our conversations together. So I've been looking forward to it. Thank you.
I didn't get to wear my Human t-shirt today. I was looking forward to that. I see you've got yours on. So next time I'll have to change garb from Night Dragon to Human, but I love the company name as well.
Yeah, let me know if you want the robot shirt as well. Sometimes, depending on the day, you get to pick what kind of day it's going to be. And I think my team knows to avoid me when it's a robot t-shirt day.
Tamer, let's talk a little bit about this rise of bots. And I'm going to read a couple things to start because, you know, for one guy who's been in cybersecurity for 20 years and been in the security market, if you don't know my background, you know, I'm not only the founder and CEO of Night Dragon, we're an investment advisory firm, but also I was CEO of FireEye and Mandiant. You know, I ran those companies for a long time, did a lot of incident response related to issues. Bots were typically involved with darn near every threat and attack that we were involved with. So, you know, have an interesting perspective from there. But I was also CEO of McAfee before that, where we began to see the rise of bots all the way back to 2000. And if you look all the way 20 years ago, the first one called Earthlink Spammer, I thought was pretty amazing. I couldn't even remember this one completely, but a bot generated 1.25 million phishing scam emails just from a bot network all the way back in 2000. I wonder if it was on AOL, Tamer, maybe it was. But then going forward, you know, there was names like Storm and Cutwhale and Grum and Kraken and Mariposa and Methbot. You got to love the names of all of these things. But a lot of you might remember the Mirai botnet in 2016, which really was an incredible attack on infrastructure, critical infrastructure, over 600,000 devices, really bringing down some critical infrastructure. In 2016, I was also CEO of FireEye. We put out some reports all around misinformation campaigns the Internet Rating Agency put in place, all about disseminating information, a part of the American democracy and voting systems, affecting millions and millions of Americans. So bots can be used in so many different ways, from denial of service to misinformation to basically ad and media attacks, or even loss of data and revenue related to ads. So it's really been an interesting problem. And if you didn't even notice, in the last couple of days, we've even had more bot attacks resulting in denial of service in an airline industry that I'm a part of. I chair safety and security for Delta Airlines. A lot of the airports were affected by a denial of service attack. while not impacting the airlines, it really shows the potentiality of DOS attacks and DDoS attacks using bots. And this was coming from a Russian group called Killnet, which again shows this constant rise of bots problem. Tamer, talk a little bit about it from your perspective. Bots, you've been fighting this for most of your career now. Talk about the problem a little bit, and before we get to your company.
It's been a decade of innovation in the bot world. I think back 10 years and we'd see a lot of denial of service in basic farms that were relatively easy to spot from a distance. The evolution of that, the way I've always thought about it, the problem that we end up dealing with is, what can you do if you look like a million humans? And that starts to get interesting, because we start to see bot attacks span everything from, as you said, advertising and media, to manipulating the popularity of something, to account takeover on applications, fraud and abuse in the finance space. We've even picked up on bots designed to listen to music, on streaming media platforms. Don't ask me what kind of music they listen to. I wonder the same thing. Is it classical? Is it R&B? I don't know. But you see bots doing just about anything that a human does. And that game really is, if you can look like a million humans, what can you do? The most interesting part about it is that today, now, over 3/4 of security incidents have a bot used somewhere in the attack cycle, which is really important. And it could be for the vulnerability scan in the beginning of the attack. It could be for the account takeover. It could be for automating some of the work downstream. But what this really tells us is that bots are a platform for cybercrime. They are a tool. They're a weapon system. I like to think of that. That's how we referred to our aircraft in the Air Force. They're major weapon systems, and you can use them in a lot of different ways. And so if you're an attacker nowadays and you're not using a bot, you're sort of out of date. And so our mantra has always been, stop the bot, stop the threat. And it's been, I'd say, one of the most important security issues of this decade.
Yeah, I can't agree more. And, obviously this is one of the bigger challenges that we're seeing, because it's very difficult to spot the difference between a bot and a human. And I want to segue for a minute, because to tell the audience here a little bit, I've been involved with Human now for a little bit over 2 years, and been very excited to work with Tamer on building up his company. But, Tamer, talk a little bit about Human for a minute. The company was called White Ops for, I think, 10 years or so. You changed the name just a little less than 2 years ago. Tell a little bit of the story here. I think it's worth hearing, because I want to talk about the defense against this problem of bots.
Yeah, absolutely. So we started off as a small group in a science fiction bookstore in Brooklyn, New York. That's, all we had to work out of, and, a small team of technologists and hackers, largely, really evaluating the bot problem on the internet and thinking about what it really is on the other side, and how big it could actually be. We saw this as a integrity of the internet level problem, knowing who's real and knowing whether there's a real human on the other end of the screen for any given interaction. And when we started, a lot of our thesis around this was around the observation that bots largely come from our own devices. That's the sophisticated bot activity that a lot of companies miss. They're coming from our own machines. I think that's the part that a lot of people miss, is that this is my daughter's iPad with the games I should have policed better and the SDK in the background. It's the laptops and the PCs and our phones, right? And what that really means is that bots have our identity. It's compromised identity, right? So when it looks like a million humans, it looks like a million humans, right? It has interest for advertising, it has cookies, it has login data. When you see this activity, we've even seen bot operations that are designed to go around and visit and interact with content and websites so that they get the cookies and so that they actually populate the data. So that when you do the analysis, it's harder to parse them apart. So largely, as we built this company, we built it for protecting against what we thought was one of the most important threats coming in cybersecurity, this ability for any attacker to scale their attack with automation and remote control. And that's been a 10-year journey. We started off with white ops, under the principle of leading the fight, for good. Last year, about 18 months ago or so, we became human security. And, it was really this opportunity to define who we want to be as a company in the security space and who we want to be as a company to our employees and to our customers, not to mention the importance of knowing who's human on the internet.
Tamer, I love the company name, as I said earlier, and just a really cool company led by a really cool founder and CEO. Talk a little bit about, sort of the defense side. I mean, you can see on the slide here, 20 trillion interactions per month now. I think you're even almost down to that per week. And what's really interesting is you just talked about the complexity of these bots. And I go back to 2016 again for a minute, when the Russians had set up this agency which created all these what look like humans to basically live in battleground states, such that they were real identities, but they were really just bots disseminating information. And it's so difficult to discern the difference between a human and bot without incredible telemetry of intelligence, machine learning. Talk a little bit about the telemetry you have and the technology for a minute, just so everybody hears that.
Yeah, one of the most important trends around bots in the last 10 years is that, as you've pointed out, they've become more and more human-like. 10 years ago, it was more rudimentary type attacks. Now, they're closer and closer to looking perfectly human. And I think we all have to remember in technology and security that technology is democratic, right? When we talk about machine learning and AI, it's open to everybody, including the attackers that have maybe 1 million humans that they can model the perfect time on page or the perfect mouse stroke for what human activity really looks like. So our approach became one of going beyond statistical analysis to a methodology of technical evidence, and one of also offense and disruption. That's been a really important part of that. Our theory and thesis on the whole problem is one of modern defense theory. And fundamentally, how do we raise the cost of the attack and lower the cost of defense? And that's done at the technology layer, the people layer, the process layer. And it's an important part of this problem, essentially, of collective protection is the only way to win. As you pointed out, that we live in a world that's global, full of now population. Think about the population of the world. It's approaching 8 billion humans. I think that rough estimates around 2/3 of those humans are online. And we see bots that generate billions of interactions in a single day that eclipses the population of the globe. The scalability of that is incredible and somewhat frightening, right? And so collective protection is critical. Going beyond pure defense is fundamentally important. We can't sit back and just defend attack after attack. That's what our human security is based on, this principle of modern defense, of going out and doing disruptions, collective intelligence inside of the technology in seconds that are across all customers, shared threat intelligence, using deception and misinformation back, right? We have to make every cycle of the attack expensive and difficult. That's the only way that we start to change the balance in defensive security.
I always believe, Tamer, that, and people who have heard me, I talk about 3 fundamental principles of every really good critical infrastructure security company: crowd, cloud, and AI, right? You have to have a cloud deployed, cloud managed solution. You got to integrate with APIs easily to really create hyperscale. You've got to be able to leverage the crowd of telemetry in order to really see the threat problem, because it can be anywhere in the world, and then leveraging ML and AI as a mechanism. And I know you've been building a lot of this. That's what creates that visibility in the first place, right?
Yeah, completely agree. And it's one of the things that got me so excited about the merger that we just did. It's our largest competitor. It seemed like an unlikely opportunity, but we found the opportunity to bring 2 great companies together. And we wake up to safeguard our customers from digital attacks. That is our purpose. And in order to win in this area against attackers and in the market, there's some important fundamentals that I've always felt are at the core of this. And it starts with lead with great technology and product. We are a product and technology company. That has to be first. I bear hug the customer. And Dave, I've stolen that from you. And that mantra lives inside of me. And I say that all the time. That we're here to serve the customers and take this problem off of their plate and deliver on the promise of collective protection. The technology part is important. And to me, that breaks down into three areas. It starts with great detection and detection capabilities. That is where the battleground actually lives. And this, for us, bringing together these two companies, over 350 algorithms at the heart of it, across 20 trillion interactions on a regular basis, over half of the global population we touch. That was the opportunity we saw to bring into the technology platform. And the second part of the technology is it's got to be dead simple to use. It's got to be an amazing user experience, easy to use, easy to deploy. And bringing these two amazing technology teams and product suites together gives us access to over 100 ecosystem integrations that unlocks some of that capability across everything in a customer stack. The fabric of security has to live, at that layer. And all of these came together for us in this opportunity with, two amazing companies and teams that are mission driven and technology driven that really came together for this merger.
I love it, Tamer. And I see human as, it's like the rise of bots, the rise of human as a company. And say a little bit more. I mean, now Perimeter X together with human, the new human, so to speak, is a large company now tracking over 100 million of ARR. You have operations in a lot of different locations. You brought sort of the best of Israel and Tel Aviv with Perimeter X together with human. You've got this great geographical footprint of engineering and people. Talk a little bit about the organization and the size of it, over 400 people, I think now as well. Say a few more words about the company.
Yeah, absolutely. And the team is, one of the most exciting parts. And I think back to officer training, right? Where one of the classic debates in the education phase is mission or people, which comes first. And the reality is it's coupled and they both take different positions at different times, but there is no mission without the people. And, we know in security, you have to start with great people if you need to serve the mission. And, we brought together two amazing R&D teams and we kept all of them. So we have this powerhouse of innovation and delivery of product. Our goal, like I said, is to safeguard our customers, deliver the best detection and make it easy to use. And so that's now across approaching 500 people next year. As you said, globally across different verticals, where we have a significant footprint in e-commerce. Some of the largest technology platforms in the world use us. Our footprint in advertising and media is large and important. The vast majority of programmatic advertising in the world flows through our pipes. And we spend as a group of companies over $400 billion in digital advertising that's meant to reach real human eyeballs. And there's double-digit percentages of fraud that happens there. Our goal and our job there is to safeguard that marketing spend. And so all of this actually comes together in the fundamental principle of the network effect of data and visibility, what you can really do with machine learning when you put it on top of 15 to 20 trillion interactions across media, online, e-commerce, finance, and large technology. And that's the game we want to play. We want to tip the advantage to our side instead of in defensive security and siloed fights. This is a collective problem, and it requires a large collective infrastructure to make it more expensive for attackers and less costly for all of the defenders.
I can't wait to hear what symbol you're going to use for your NASDAQ or NYSE listing on human. So you don't have enough characters to make it all 5 of those, but we'll see what you can come up with on that. Hey, let's transition just a hair, maybe in the last portion of the segment, to some of the takedowns and the success that Human has had. I read your bio at the beginning about Eve. And what I've always been impressed about with you, Tamer, and the company has been the work you can do, public-private partnerships together with the government, together with the FBI, together with Google, together with the community to really act as a village to do takedowns. And I know you've had quite a few big ones as well. Maybe talk about that with the audience for a second as well.
Yeah. So, this all comes down to that principle of modern defense. And, when I was in the Air Force, I remember the first lesson I learned about combat, and it was long before I stepped foot in a PAVOK helicopter, well before I was in Iraq or Afghanistan. It was in a classroom at the academy in a small group, and I remember it was so poignant. The instructor, serious and silent, waited a moment and opened up with, if you're ever walking into a battle to fight a fair fight, turn around. That's not the fight you want to fight. Right. And that always stuck with me, this idea that, we have to tip it to our advantage. We have to use threat intelligence. We have to use collective knowledge. We have to use deception and disruption to actually change the economics and tip the advantage to our side. And that's the importance of disruptions. It's the importance of modern defense is rooted in that. When we think about where we sit in defensive security, it's a scary picture, right? We've doubled our losses in the last 5 years, coming up to over $16 trillion of losses annually, in approaching that in 2025. Over the 10-year period, we've gone and we're going from 75 million in spend on defenses and cyber to 1.75 trillion in 2025. Those two numbers are going up. It's an alarming characteristic where you want to see the spend go up and the losses go down, or some inverse relationship. And that to me highlights the importance of going beyond defense, because it truly is an economic problem where raising the cost of the attack is critical. And so we think of that in many layers in the technology. How can we manipulate feedback loops, delay feedback loops, use misinformation? We have some customers that use deception, where if they detect it's a bot, they change the information or do some other things that I'll keep inside the playbook, all the way to disruptions, right? So we have a large threat intelligence capability because of the amount of data that we see across the network. We're able to work towards attribution and investigation and essentially enact takedowns and disruptions. That's a really important part of that. Sometimes that's with government and law enforcement. Sometimes it's private sector. We've had cases where we've pulled the largest platforms on the internet. There was a case last year called Pareto. It was, essentially millions of Android devices that were infected, interacting and pretending to interact with smart televisions. And we pulled Google, Roku, Trade Desk, a variety of other companies to leverage shared data and enact an infrastructure takedown to leave the attackers with some level of cost before they've recouped the profits. Going back even further, the Eve bot operations, this is 1.7, 1.8 million infected devices at any given time, 30 to 40,000 new devices churning a day at one point at its peak, and generating billions of interactions that we were defending and seeing across our network of customers. And right away, we saw this opportunity to put together a group. And I remember, the day I sent the lead to law enforcement, and within a few weeks got a call, and then we started to pull in other companies. Google joined us, Proofpoint joined us, Symantec, Microsoft, Facebook, all in what we eventually called the Aversion Working Group. And aversion, such a wonderful concept. Aversion is actually a mathematical term for taking a sphere and flipping it inside out without breaching breaching it. And it sounds impossible. Even some mathematicians will think that it's impossible, but it's actually mathematically possible. There's great visualizations on YouTube of this. But this idea of turning an operation inside and out without tipping them off, and ultimately leading to a takedown. Now that led to the indictment of 8 Russian cyber criminals. 4 of them were extradited. They were put in, they're behind bars in Brooklyn. And from the time that we sent the lead to the time that they were behind bars was less than 24 months, which is unheard of. You know, that should have taken 5 to 7 years in a typical case. But
Can you do
because
more of that for us, Tamer, we need more of that. Yeah, we want.
Yes, I agree. And you know, this idea of modern defense, collective protection, collective response, and this global view of data unlocked that and made that possible. And you know, I remember, you know, even there was one of my proud moments. The FBI tweeted out when we were on stage with the FBI at an event, just talking about this, and they tweeted about White Ops at the time. That this is great. It's the right example that we need, and so that's all a part of our mentality around disruptions.
Last question for you, Tamer. What's next? What's next for the new Human now that you've merged Perimeter X together with Human? You know, what do you see over the next period of time for the company, and what's your ambitions for the company?
Yeah, we're here to build a company of consequence. And what that means to me is a company that's solving an important set of problems for the internet, a company that leads with great technology, a company that is a great place for people to work and do their best work, and a company that is sustainable, healthy, growing, right? That's what gets me out of bed. Now, when I think about tactically what's next, it is focus, right? It's bringing together 2 amazing teams into one team and focus on leading with our capabilities and protecting our customers from the next set of attacks.
Well, it's been an honor to work with you, my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, Tamer Hassan, co-founder, CEO of Human. Everybody keep an eye on this company, Human. Amazing company, amazing person. Thank you so much for all the insights today, Tamer. Appreciate you.
Always a great pleasure, Dave. I love chatting with you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody.